Welcome to the 30th episode of Sparks. I'm Deirdre Brennan. I'm the Executive Director of the Reaching Across Illinois Library System, obviously in Illinois. And we started this podcast a couple of years ago now to provoke or promote conversation and even, debate sometime, friendly debate about issues and trends that are important in libraries in Illinois and across the country. My guests today are Kathleen Helsabeck, who's the Executive Director of the Quincy Public Library in Illinois, and Burgundy Hill, who is the Assistant Director and Marketing Manager, Director, Coordinator of
whichever one you want to choose.
of the Quincy Public Library. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Our pleasure. So we're going to talk about some amazing work that you guys did related to telling your library's story to your community when you were facing some budget cuts, and this obviously is not a topic that is unfamiliar to many of our listeners, and I know that it will turn out to be extremely helpful. So just to set the stage, why don't you tell me, I guess probably you, Kathleen, what prompted this? I should, full disclosure, I've had a very big place in my heart for Quincy Public Library. It's a beautiful city out on the Mississippi, and I've been there many times to work with the board and Kathleen and the former director, Nancy, on various things. And we had a board member from on the Rails board who was from Quincy. So we have a lot in common, but I'm not, I don't know what's really been happening, recently with your budget. So why don't you just, take it from the top, wherever you want to begin.
Yeah, about 2 years ago, I became the director here. And at that time, about 6 months before, in April, the city had cut the library budget drastically. It was about a 4 to 6% cut, and it was very devastating. The library had several cuts over the last 10 years, different years, not necessarily consecutive years, but every few years there would be a cut, and so this cut in 2018 was very devastating. It was just so huge. And so a lot of what we did when I came on was to be proactive, to prevent that from happening in the future, to build a relationship with the city, with the aldermen, with the community, so that everybody could learn our story, learn the library story, and become familiar with it. So the first thing I did was I had meetings with all the aldermen. I brought in aldermen 3 at a time to the library for a full tour. It was an extensive tour, between 25 and 30-minute tour, even downstairs where we don't let the patrons. They went to see tech services, how the books are processed. They met with the tech services librarian on all of our digital resources. They went and saw outreach, and those outreach staff people talked to the aldermen about delivery to all of our institutions and our interlibrary loan with all of the institutions and all the libraries in our region and things like that. And that was really eye-opening for them. They soon learned more about the library, that we're not just books, we're not just programs, we're so much more than that. And they didn't know that we had school delivery, that we delivered to the teachers. They didn't know necessarily that we had lockers around town. And so that was the first step. The second step was to speak at city council. It's a public forum. Anybody can speak on the first meeting of the month, the first Monday. And so I started asking patrons to come and speak. I got a mother of 2 teenagers. One teenager of hers has dyslexia, and she was so happy for the library service to help her daughter, because she got into graphic novels and really was excited to learn to read, to learn to love to read.
I watched your video. I watched your video about that, and she went from reading Dick and Jane to reading The Scarlet Letter and Little Women. That's incredible. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I just had to give you a shout out for that.
Yeah, that's fine. We did a student, an adult student, and she used the library for her grad school classes. And so it wasn't just, you're not just reading textbooks, you're reading volumes and things like that, monographs, and getting those interlibrary loan was beneficial. She saved a lot of money. She didn't have to buy her textbooks. We had a mom of 18-month-old twins, and they love to come to story time. And so those stories were so valuable to share. And that was a great experience. We captured those through the city records all of theirs on Circuit TV, and we got those recordings and posted them on Facebook for everybody to share and interview and learn.
Great. So and so what I mean, how did you find these people? Did you just ask them? I mean, did you meet them in the library? Did you put a call out for people to speak at city council, or did you have a marketing? I assume you had a marketing campaign, right, Burgundy? Yeah.
Yeah, we did. There were kind of a lot of pieces that were working at the time. But one of the pieces was really advocating to our patrons as well, and just being honest about where we were. I think we're, as marketers or as librarians, hesitant to talk about what happens if the budget gets cut, and talk about, not that we want to threaten that hours or services are going to be reduced. But I think being honest of, the city has said we could potentially face another 3%, 4% cut, and here's what that would mean for our budget. So we were very upfront with that, and got a good vocal base of patrons to kind of rally around it. So in looking for speakers, Kathleen and some of the other staff did reach directly out to these people, and we kind of based it off of our super users, people that we saw here every day, people that were very active in different story times, people who had made comments or written thank you letters in the past, just looking at all those different avenues to find who we thought had a good story to tell and to share.
That's great. So
yeah. We did have I do recall, now that you mentioned that, we did have a grassroots meeting in the large reading room. We sent an email to all of our super users, and we had them meet at least once, if not twice. And we asked them to write letters to the alderman and the city council, to the mayor. So we had it all broken down into ward. So when we asked you, if you came up to the counter to check out your materials, we would hand you a bookmark and say, if you wouldn't mind, would you write a letter to your alderman? And sometimes patrons would be like, well, I don't know what ward I'm in. So we would look on the map, because we have that map right handy. And we would share with them who their alderman is, how they can contact them, if they'd like to call them or if they'd like to email them. And that worked out really well as well. That was one of the beginning pieces as well.
Do you know how many letters or emails were sent by any chance? Did you get any sense from the alderman?
I think every alderman, we have 14 aldermen, 7 wards. I think every ward was contacted.
Good.
Probably 5 to 10 in each ward, if I had to guess.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. So what was the reaction of the city council? Well, as I said, I watched the videos, and you can't really tell, but as I said, I thought they were incredibly powerful stories. But so how did they react when they had, I mean, I don't imagine it's a very common thing for people to be coming week after, month after month to talk about how important a particular service is to them. What was their reaction?
It ended up getting the budget passed at the level we wanted it
Wow,
passed at. So,
that's
long story short,
fantastic.
it was effective. The other kind of piece of this is we also reached out to some of our local media allies.
Mhm.
And the local newspaper, which is a wonderful local paper that really wants to see community groups thrive, and we're grateful to have that kind of resource in our community. They also, in the last couple weeks leading up to budget discussions, ran a full, like a front page article for each day for the week. So we ended up getting, I think, 4 or 5 of front
Wow.
articles, which I know is unheard of in most places. um, Talking about a lot of the different areas that the public may not know we have service. And it's to give you some background on me, I'm a marketer that found my way into libraries, not a librarian who takes
Yeah.
on marketing. And something that I think libraries overall are just not great at is telling their story and
Yeah.
telling it in a complex way. And it's hard because we offer so many services, so I get why that's very difficult. So having that print space to really tell our story and talk about all of our services was invaluable. And of course, they kind of ended each article with, and the budget will be voted on in 2 weeks, and so the public was very aware of the situation. And I think
Wow.
between the reaction we had at city council with having people speak, we took those videos and posted them on our social media pages to share them for more than the 50 people that were in the room. And then we had the newspaper articles as well. I think all of those things really working together is what made the campaign successful.
I think you had talking points also. How did you go about developing those? And what were they? Were they about different services specifically?
Do you want to speak to that, Kathleen?
I encourage the speakers at City Council to just talk about their positive experience. I never wanted them to explicitly talk about the budget or make it a budget thing, even though that was our ultimate goal. I wanted them to just talk about their experience at the library, whatever personal experience they had, and to share that, to educate those councilmen and women on what benefits they had, what did they learn, what did they experience, how did the staff treat them, and all aspects of the library. So that was my main focus on sharing with the speakers.
Do you think, did you have to have any special equipment with to produce the videos, or it sounds like no. So this,
We set up an iPad and recorded it in addition to the city council feed in case we had issues pulling one or the other. So we kind of had the 2 avenues, and we just used very basic video editing software to clip them down and to put a logo on them and then upload them to YouTube. I know through COVID, a lot of us have become video experts that we're probably never intending to, but it was very basic editing and capture to make that happen.
do you think there was one particular or just a couple of things that you think might have really struck the aldermen? I mean, could you I mean, did they say anything back to you about, wow, this was amazing, I didn't know you did this, or I didn't know how valuable that was, or anything like that?
I didn't get any reaction at the time, but since then I've had the alderman back, and most recently, one of the aldermen, instead of having the meeting in my office or in the large meeting room, which is right next to my office, I had it in the small conference room, which is right next to circulation. And he really enjoyed that. He said, I cannot believe how many people use the library. And that
Wow.
was last January, pre-COVID. People were able to drop off their materials right at the circulation desk and check out right at the circulation desk. So that was a very vivid image. And he still, when I see him every so often, he comments on how many people use the library. his wife and children used to use it a lot for when they were younger. And I think it had been a really long time since he had been
Mhm.
in the library watching the patrons use the library, and he was
Mhm.
very shocked. And
Mhm.
that was something that sticks out in my mind.
Wow, that's great. So that was a year ago.
Hmm.
So what's this budget situation like now? Do you feel like you've gotten a better, sort of foothold in on the, in the council opinion of the library?
I do feel that the library is in a better position. In addition to all that we did, I try to go to as many city council meetings as I
Mhm.
can, and they meet weekly, so there's a lot of FaceTime. During COVID, it's a little harder, but I do try to listen in. I do try to know what's going on inside city council, even though we're considered a component unit of city government. We're not a strict department or anything like that. We do play a role, and so I try to be visible. I want the city council members to know who I am and to know that the library is there. And so, in addition to going to city council meetings and our speakers and our media, I do believe that there is a better relationship, and so we are doing pretty well. We have a good budget this year, and all things considering, I think the city is in a good place, which we're really happy for as well. Sales
Yeah.
tax dollars are where they need to be. Our situation is a little bit different. We are half subsidized by the city, and the other half is through our levy. And so that's why this particular situation is even more challenging for our library. We
Mhm.
don't get just the straight levy. And just like library districts just get a straight levy, we don't get that. And so we have to work a little bit harder for our dollars and share our
Mhm.
story a little bit more.
Right.
I also think it's really changed our approach to marketing moving forward. Just, we would like to stay in that proactive place as much as possible. So we've really started thinking about every marketing venture that we do from an advocacy perspective. How is this advocating for the library? How is this telling a story that either promotes our strategic plan or promotes a service that people may not be aware of, or will speak to our budget being used wisely and valuable to the public. So I think just keeping that top of mind in our everyday marketing approach has been really important as well.
So what advice would you give other libraries who, of which there certainly are other libraries that, face your situation? What's like the top 3 tips you would give them, or 4 or 2?
For me, I think it would be, we talk a lot about target audience, and in this specific situation, it wouldn't have mattered if we were successfully marketing to the 50,000 people of Quincy if we weren't hitting those 14 aldermen to tell that
Mhm.
story. It would have been a moot point. So I think making sure that we're being targeted with our marketing, keeping in mind who those key stakeholders are, who the decision makers are. And obviously, we're not always marketing to those 14 people. We're also trying to hit other segments in the community. But I think just keeping that target demographic in mind, so we know when we're planning marketing and outreach who we're trying to talk to for this specific thing.
It's
My tip would be to develop the relationship with the alderman, with the mayor, with the key prominent government officials in your area. If you haven't gone to a city council meeting, go to a city council meeting as often as you can. And, if they're going to cut you, I want them to know who they're cutting. I want them to see a
right.
face with that person. And there were times when I brought staff with me too. I had a sign-up sheet for staff and for board members. I thought it was important that there was a group of us going to meetings, and that was also impactful as well. At the very end of that budget cycle, we did a thank you campaign on the first day of summer reading kickoff, and we all wrote thank yous to on little Post-its, and we put them on about 5 or 6 different poster boards, and we took them to City Council. And so that was also a presence in City Council. We took our tab members, our teams, to take those poster boards, and we were able to have another presence, a positive presence, a thank you for that positive experience.
Yes, thank you is so important, and it sometimes does get forgotten. There's no question about it. It doesn't sound like this was very expensive, if for other libraries who want to be doing this kind of advocacy, which is certainly very good too. And I assume it doesn't sound like you, yeah.
No, it was, printing a few bookmarks or printing a few pamphlets around, using equipment that we already had to record. And, it was very minimal cost as far as marketing campaigns go.
And you posted several of the videos on the Rails My Library Is site, so I encourage everybody who's listening to go and view them, or I think that there might be some blog posts as well, not sure, but the videos were great. Yeah, never underestimate the power of a super library user, right? I mean, it's really great. So is there anything else you want to tell us at this point? I'm assuming that if anybody who's listening who wants to know more can reach out to you at the Quincy Library.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, thanks a lot for joining us today. I really appreciate it. And I know that more good things will come because you guys are definitely on the right track, and it's great to see. So thanks a lot for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So long.
Thank you very much for listening to Sparks today. Sparks is produced by the Reaching Across Illinois Library System. If you would like to learn more about the show or share your feedback on the topics discussed, please visit railslibraries.info/Sparks.